Hey, what's up? Dave with Brazos Valley Strength. So first of all, there's a new program available. If you head on over to my website, go to the free program tab right there. You'll be able to go to the Google Drive folder and make a copy of this new block, and then it'll be yours. I've taken away the old block, so we're really just trying to keep it one block at a time, ideally following along with what I'm saying here, talking about the programming, and really just trying to learn. So anyway, if you grab those, at least you'll have them ahead of time, but idea is to hopefully keep up with it. But anyway, I want to make this video to dive into this block, talk about some of the stuff that I said in the previous block where I was speaking as the athlete, and my overall thoughts on the previous block and how it performed and really where I wanted to see things go. And I want to talk about this block and the decisions I made to bounce off of those feelings in that moment, and kind of talk about a plan in general moving forward, especially with the next block being Raw Nationals. So I'm ideally trying to refine my process here and keep these videos short enough to be digestible. I know sometimes they can get kind of long, but I think as we get going, hopefully they'll stay under 15-20 minutes instead of stretching on as a lot more of the backstory is familiar with these things. So hopefully we're getting there. But anyway, I wanted to start off with one of the questions that I received in one of the previous videos. So anyway, I asked for questions. If you have questions about these programs, especially since we're doing them together, that can make for some really good content here. The questions that you have about why I'm writing things. Sometimes I can overlook, the way, just stuff that may be intuitive to me. You have questions about, and that can help, illuminate some of these darker areas. But one of the questions I really liked was somebody asked about why there were times that throughout the course of a block, the percentages were going up, but seemingly on a bi-weekly basis, whereas a lot of times the RPEs were staying the same through the entire block. And I thought that was a really good question. So one of my older videos on the previous channel was talking about RPE versus percentage-based training. And one of my main points about percentage-based training was that generally speaking, I'm using percentages. This may not be the case for everyone, but I'm using percentages to keep the load light enough to actually prescribe lighter loads than what I would normally be able to write just off of an RPE. So for example, let's say a set of 5 at a 6 RPE, maybe 77, somewhere 80%, something like that. But I may be wanting it to be RPE 3 or less, a set of 5 at 70%. And so I'm writing the percentages to keep things light enough. And so then the question was asking about why there were design progressions with percentages, but most of the time on a bi-weekly basis. And the point basically with that, and it's not always the case that's what's happening, but that generally speaking is what I do. If I have a percentage-based increase, a lot of times it's on a bi-weekly basis. It'll be 70% for 2 weeks, 72% for a few weeks. And essentially, I'm trying to keep intact the integrity of the original intention. If I'm writing, for example, and I'll actually talk about this program. This program, I have sets of 6 at 72.5% by week 3. And actually in this one, I don't think that goes up. Well, it starts off at 70. Okay, it does go to 75. So the goal is to have those reps light. But I'm trying to encourage a bit more weight on the bar. So the percentage is going up as I'm getting stronger and I'm getting more comfortable with higher loads. And by the time the end of the block comes, a set of 5 at 75% is still going to be very, very submaximal. But if I let it creep up more than if I was just doing 2.5% every single week, starting off with like a 6 at 70, by the end it may be a set of 5 at like 80%, and that's just harder than I really wanted it to be. And so by going every other week, it slows that actual progress. Instead of starting significantly, way light 65%, I can skip weeks with progressions and allow myself opportunities to adapt. And so that is that's a big point, is I think a lot of times people are expecting themselves to be stronger every single week and to be be able to put more weight on the bar every single time. And maybe that's the case sometimes, is that you actually are able to improve. But in this case, if my percentage is going up every week, then that's not the same training every week. That training is getting more intense as I go. Starting at 70% and ending at 80%. It's 10% harder by the end. And even dropping loads or dropping reps, it can really change the feel. So every other week with a slow progression, hopefully puts a bit more weight on the bar, but maintains the integrity of what the intention was originally. The other side of it was asking about why a lot of times on my primary days that the RPEs essentially don't change at all. I may do a single at 8, a triple at 8, and then like 3x3 minus 7.5% load drop, which is I think what I'm, pretty much what I'm minus 10% here, is what I'm doing. So again, the answer to that is that the RPEs, it's essentially a percentage. I mean, it's the same way. It's just trying to put weight on the bar. Is staying the same because my assumption is that that's an appropriate intensity for me to get stronger throughout the course of a block, and that by me getting stronger, more weight will come, and that I don't have to artificially put more weight on the bar by just making it more intense. So that instead of just trying to drive progress by making it harder and harder, essentially I'm hitting a very similar week, a very similar training feel throughout the course of this training, and I'm able to analyze at that point whether the training protocol is working. So there's certainly times near the end of blocks, we can kind of talk about it here, is that by the end of the training, I am increasing percentages just a little bit. So with this, I didn't do it on this one, but it may be something. For example, on squats, I'm currently doing one set at an RPE, a single at an RPE 8, a triple at an RPE of 8, and then I do 4 triples at a 10% load drop from that triple. Something I could do, but I didn't do, was increase so 1x1, 1x3, and instead of the 4x3, I could bring it down to 3x3 at a 7.5% drop, and a 2x3 at a 5% drop by the final week. So I am biasing towards intensity at the end without putting more weight on the bar than, without changing the proximity to failure, especially at the top end. So there's certainly times that I could do that. But I'll talk a bit more about why I didn't in this block when I cover the squatting. But that was a really good question. It's about trying to maintain the integrity of what is in the program. I think you could increase percentages every single week, but it's in this case, I think it just fits. It fits what the original intention of the program was, by kind of slow rolling progressions and giving me time to get stronger and time to adapt to the original program. So talking about squats, one of the things that I mentioned in my last block was that the high bar squatting I was feeling like wasn't very effective. The main goal with my high bar squats was to feel like my pattern, my timing, just general comfort with the squatting was feeling better. Mostly lower body stuff, just comfortable overall, and it totally accomplished that. By the end I was feeling comfortable both low bar and high bar, but probably lacking a strong enough stimulus to really improve my low bar squatting from those high bar squats specifically. So one of the things that I said was I wanted to try to find ways to give myself a little bit more exposure to load. And I think it's important to talk about timing here, is that I'm needing to find ways to give myself a little bit more exposure to load as I'm getting closer to this competition. What would be my biggest competition of the year, right? Is that I have this big one and I don't have another big one planned until potentially the same time next year. So after this block, I'm not going to be as concerned about how comfortable I am under heavy weights. I can take away some of the stuff I'm doing now, which we'll talk about. But that was a big concern as I'm moving forward, is about making sure that I'm prepared to be able to hit these weights that I'm feeling like I'm strong enough for. And so what I did with this one was added a second low bar squat day, which that was one of the plans originally. But then I had to decide how I wanted to write that. And really what I went with was a competition single, which now I'm doing 2 low bar singles a week, which I don't do very often. But the important day, it's actually kind of interesting here, is I'm more interested in day 1, which is my lighter day, than I am with day 5, which is the heavy squat day. But day 1, I'm doing a single at 6. I didn't write a load cap on this one, but I have in my mind what essentially my last warm-up would be at the competition, 270 kilos. And at the competition, hopefully that's less than a 6 RPE. But I wrote this a single at 6, and I'm essentially capping that at last warm-up range. If I get to a 6 RPE before the 270, I'll stop there as well. It's been so far so good. It's been 270 a couple weeks in a row now. But then there's percentages behind that. And the idea there, just with 2 sets of a bit higher reps, I mentioned before, one of the things I liked about high bar squats and sometimes higher rep ranges is it gives me an opportunity to relax and just squat and just let myself find a position that I really want to move in. And so I've been really happy so far with how this block is set up, is that I have exposure to, a bit more heavy stuff just to, feel that weight and practice those things. But then at the beginning of the week, it's very low fatigue, low stress, just a couple sets of lighter reps. At the end of the week, bias a bit more towards the heavy with a heavy triple, but then back down triples again that are very low fatigue. A single at 8 or triple at 8 followed by 10% load drops. Those are getting around like the 5 RPE range. So heavy enough weight on the bar for it to matter, at 80% or something, but moving very, very effectively. And I actually made the comment out loud, training the garage after one of my sets. I was like, I think this is the most comfortable I've been squatting in months. My girlfriend training in the garage after one of the sets, after one of the light ones. So striking good balance between there being enough weight on the bar and actually to get feedback from it, but still moving very quickly. And I think sometimes that's a hard thing for people to find, is that they end up biasing a bit too hard or too much towards things that are too heavy, feeling like it needs to be hard. But I think, a triple, especially for somebody who's been training, 10, 15 years, squatting hard, a triple at a 6 RPE is a hard set, it's something I have to try hard at to make it happen. And so it's been so far very good as far as how I'm feeling with my ability to squat. So that was the adjustments that I made with my squatting, and so far so good. Pretty simple setup, and one of the biggest things I mentioned in the last one was that I haven't been doing belt squats, and I added in belt squats, sets of 10 at a 9 RPE, making those very hard. So I said in the last one, maybe I don't need these, and then now I started doing it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, they're fantastic for my legs. And yeah, if you don't have a belt squat, like I've said it before, it's kind of unfortunate that I think myself and many other people are just like finding so much value from these. It's like we want to be able to find ways to get stronger, but man, if you have a belt squat, take advantage of that thing, because it certainly is. Maybe for people like myself with the wider stance, not totally built for feeling our legs super effectively with the squats, but it makes a humongous difference with my ability to actually train my legs without taxing my back and disrupting stuff other places. So, but yeah, everything I wrote in this block, was a reaction, a progression from stuff in the last block, and it looks like so far things are being very effective. So the bench press stuff should be fairly straightforward. I carried over a lot of the things that I did in my previous block, but I took away a bit. I took away a set here and there from some of my bench pressing, took away some accessories, and really kind of in the same vein as what I did with my squatting, is it's much lower rep ranges, but with pretty moderate RPEs. As I'm really not trying to kill myself with load on these. So let's say day 2, I'm doing 5 doubles, up to an 8 RPE, but the heaviest one is an 8 RPE. I still should be moving pretty quickly. 5 singles on day 1 with a 2 count bench press at a 7 RPE. So the whole objective for what I'm doing right now is to get enough weight in my hands for me to feel like I'm moving weight, but still move it very fast. Be productive with that rather than just feeling like I'm being crushed under the weight. And maybe some of this going as well as what it is, I think right now, is because I wasn't bench pressing much at all for about 3 months, and so now I'm like 2 or 3 months back into bench pressing, and some of the exposure to more novel stimulus to singles and things like that is really giving it a boost. But I've said before that I think sometimes my bench press, I don't know, ego or whatever makes me want to train it a bit too hard and do too many sets because I'm willing to. And so the reduction in number of sets and reduction in RPE and those kind of things are really having me feel consistently a bit better, and really higher output and putting more weight on the bar. So, it's not about finding the most work you can do, but it's about finding the right balance of work. And so here I've shifted the balance between a bit more weight, but without the RPEs being very hard. So, let's say I'm consistently most of the time training in between 8 and 85% with like doubles and triples. And so they're moving very well. But shifted some of my intensity to, more accessories like heavier dips. And I'm doing some barbell overhead press. That's kind of a personal favorite of mine. But close grip bench press and things like that I really enjoy, can go hard at as far as hypertrophy. And then in the next block, heading into Raw Nationals, I'll drop some of the hypertrophy driven kind of stuff and just focus on, more of the strength and but without generating fatigue. But anyway, I think the biggest thing that I've done with my bench press in this one is giving myself just opportunities to bench well, rather than just trying to train it as hard as I can to get it better. It's just lots and lots of good days, moving weight effectively and just practicing my technique a bunch of times and kind of finding other places that don't beat me up to be able to continue to train general strength with my upper body and hypertrophy, and almost treating my bench press more like I treat my squat, as practicing the movement itself and then using a lot of other variations to build up my total strength there. And deadlifts have been going fantastic for the last few blocks, especially the last one ending with a double, over 800 pounds. Bit of a surprise there. So really, it was about just trying to look at the things that I've been doing with my deadlifts and how to continue that progress. And so the biggest thing that I know about my deadlift is that my aggression and my attitude matters tremendously. And I think that's true with everyone. But it's about finding that perfect balance. Again, I'm saying that balance a lot, is being able to give myself opportunities to practice aggression and really go after it and rip those singles, but with the correct weight on the bar, that it moves really, really well and gives me good feedback from the way that I'm moving. And I think my tendency with deadlifts has been, if I get too heavy too early, I'm not moving quite as well. I'm not quite as confident with my position. I'm not pulling slack quite as well. And just my position is not very good. And it ends up kind of messing with my confidence. And so doing more singles, more reps around the 6 RP, 7 RP range, but trying my absolute hardest on those has been something that has led to really, really big progress. And I think sometimes, if I'm talking to other athletes and I say, like, no, it should be a 6 RP or 7 RP, I'm not saying this should be easy. I'm saying you should be trying your absolute hardest to put as much weight on the bar, move it as fast as you can, but not put so much weight that you're fatiguing at the end of these sets and that you can't maintain high output. And so that's the biggest thing that I'm doing with my deadlift, is just giving myself opportunities to just really go after these weights that are fairly heavy, but just walking that line between just absolutely dominating them, and it's enough weight to kind of scare me a little bit, like to think, ooh, this might be hard off the floor, but then just totally commit and go after it. So more singles in this block, but again, staying, in the 6 RP, 7 RP range, but aggression. And then heading into the competition, I'm now adding in bar holds, making sure my grip is holding up, not forcing myself to be uncomfortable with, doing all my reps without straps. I think I maintain high output with that. But, just practicing singles without the straps, doing bar holds, getting my grip stronger, and just making sure I'm ready to just pull as much as I possibly can and have a great sense of, self-belief when I'm going to these deadlifts, that I can just pull anything I want off the floor. So I don't think we get there by hitting a bunch of hard deadlifts that kind of make you think that you're near your limit. I think even staying, much lower, I did 3 singles last week at 320. They moved really well. So 50 kilos under what I hit a double with in the last block. Significantly under, and I'm doing those for singles now. But, I'm feeling like, my technique is good. Things are building. They felt hard enough to matter. And just the course of a block, those kind of things add up to some really good performances, but obviously help improve and get me stronger. So I think a lot of the strength that I'm building, performance there is coming from practice with those deadlifts. But belt squats at the beginning of the week. I'm doing some heavy stiff leg deadlifts at the end of the week. I think there's certainly still enough volume from my deadlifts to help me get me stronger there. Besides, even with the low RPE, so there's not really concerns I'm doing enough work. But anyway, really some just keeping up the momentum of what I have there and keeping the confidence up and not trying to be a hero and just say, well, I did 810 or 816 or whatever I did in the last block for a double, and I need to beat this block. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe something big happens at the end. I plan on doing a heavy triple at the end, but maybe not. I mean, it may not match that at all, but it's just about continuing to have good training and letting those days show up when they're actually there. So just keeping the feel more so. I tell athletes when you're having good training, you don't need to repeat the training numbers that you hit to have that good training. You need to repeat the process, the feel, the way that you created those things. And so that's really the big objective at this point with my deadlift and overall. So far, so good with this block. It looks like it should be leading to some really good stuff. And then leading into some good opportunities and still have some space to change things heading into Raw Nationals and be able to create a nice, peaking block at that point. So anyway, hopefully people will be getting stronger off this one. I so far so good with me. But anyway, if you have any questions off of this block or just kind of programming concepts in general, please drop them in the comments, and I'll either make them in the next video, block review kind of thing, or just talk about them in other videos. So anyway, hopefully you enjoy this program. Give me a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.